This presentation explains the additional requirement of climate change included by the International Organization for Standardization in 2024 in all the management system standards. Climate change. The additional requirement is only applied to the first two subclauses of the fourth clause. 4.1 Understanding the organization and its context. The organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and that affect its ability to achieve the intended results of its management system. The following line has been added to the standard with respect to climate change requirement. The organization shall determine whether climate change is a relevant issue. For point 2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. The organization shall determine the interested parties that are relevant to the respective management system. The relevant requirements of these interested parties. Which of these requirements will be addressed through the respective management system? The following line has been added to the standard with respect to climate change requirement. Relevant interested parties can have requirements related to climate change. The overall intent of the clauses 4.1 and 4.2 remains unchanged, as these clauses already included the need for the organization to consider internal and external issues that can impact the effectiveness of their management system, from ISO/IF Joint Communique. These new inclusions are to ensure that climate change is firmly on the organization's radar screen and is given special attention as one of the external issues to be considered in the design and implementation of their management system. What does the term climate change actually mean? Climate change refers to long-term changes in the average weather patterns on Earth. It includes shifts in temperature, precipitation, and other atmospheric conditions over extended periods, often decades to millions of years. In modern discussions, climate change typically refers to the human-driven warming of the planet, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and gas, which releases greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This leads to global warming, melting ice caps, rising sea levels, more frequent extreme weather events, such as hurricanes, floods, and droughts, and disruptions to ecosystems and biodiversity. Let's understand the effect of climate change on the planet. Climate change has far-reaching effects on both the environment and human societies. Here are some of the key impacts. 1. Rising temperatures. Global temperatures are rising due to the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. This leads to more frequent and intense heat waves, affecting agriculture, water resources, and human health. 2. Melting ice and rising sea levels. The warming of the Earth causes polar ice caps and glaciers to melt, contributing to rising sea levels. This threatens coastal communities, wildlife habitats, and leads to the erosion of coastlines. 3. Extreme weather events. Climate change increases the frequency and severity of extreme weather events, such as hurricanes, droughts, floods, and wildfires. These events disrupt lives, damage infrastructure, and impact economies. 4. Ocean acidification. The increased concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere also leads to higher levels of carbon dioxide being absorbed by the oceans, causing ocean acidification. This affects marine life, particularly shellfish, corals, and other marine organisms. 5. Disruption of ecosystems. Changes in temperature and precipitation patterns disrupt ecosystems. Species that cannot adapt or migrate face extinction, and new invasive species may spread. This affects biodiversity and the balance of ecosystems. 6. Agricultural impact. Changes in temperature and precipitation, as well as extreme weather events, which can severely impact agricultural practices and output. Let us understand the effect of climate change on business. Climate change has significant effects on businesses across various sectors. These effects can disrupt operations, alter consumer behavior, and require businesses to adapt to new regulations, risks, and opportunities. Here's an overview of how climate change impacts businesses. Operational disruptions to business. Extreme weather events. Businesses are increasingly facing disruptions due to extreme weather events like floods, hurricanes, heat waves, and wildfires. These can damage infrastructure, disrupt supply chains, and reduce productivity. Resource shortages. Climate change can cause resource scarcity, particularly in industries dependent on agriculture, water, and raw materials. Droughts and crop failures can drive up costs and reduce availability of key resources. Regulatory and legal risks. Governments are introducing more stringent environmental regulations, such as limits on carbon emissions, water usage, and waste management. These can increase operational costs for businesses that need to comply with new standards. Legal action. Companies that contribute heavily to environmental degradation may face lawsuits from governments, local communities, or environmental groups, leading to financial and reputational damage. And shifting consumer preferences. Eco-conscious consumers are increasingly demanding. This diagram is a schematic representation of the effect of climate change on the various business factors that can be affected and the subsequent effect on the outcome of the business operations. Climate change can affect various factors like government policies, capital required for business taxation, human resource ability, technology, laws of the land, and factors of production. One example of taxation can be the introduction of CBAM for product supply to the European continent. This is an additional tax that is expected to be levied on the product supplied to European Union due to GHG emissions. The amendments of the standard are publicly available. The guidance provided in this paper is intended for first, second, and third-party audits. In what concerns third-party certification, due to the nature of the amendment, a specific transition program is not required, as timely communicated by IEF. In some parts of the world, climate change and its causes are controversial topics. Consistent with ISO 19011, 2018 guidelines for auditing management systems, auditors are to maintain objectivity and strict neutrality when auditing climate change issues. They should not express personal beliefs relating to climate change. The role of the auditors is only to assess whether the organization determined if climate change issues are relevant or not in relation to their management systems and its intended results, and, if that is the case, then how it is addressed within the management systems. This amendment does not require an organization to have climate change initiatives unless it has been identified as a relevant issue to achieve the intended results of the management system. Here are some activities that organizations can implement to demonstrate compliance towards the requirement of climate change and standards. For Clause 4.1, understanding the organization and its context. A. Brainstorm on any challenge, issue, problem current, or potential the organization faces or may face related to climate change directly or indirectly, considering the factors referred in schematic diagram. B. List the issues in the issue repository in case you develop one. C. Those issues can be related to any climate change consequence that affects the organization directly or indirectly. D. Subject these issues to risk assessment as individual organizational framework. For Clause 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. A. Identify the additional requirement from stakeholder due to consequence of climate change. B. Their requirement can be compliance criteria, certification, environment or other compliance, material requirement, emission contract, etc. Documents and records that need to be updated. A. Procedure for issue identification and risk management. B. Records of issue and risk log and opportunities. C. List the issue and challenge faced to meet the stakeholders' requirements. D. Where necessary, take actions to mitigate the risk. To conclude, it can be said that climate change is the most critical issue currently faced by mankind, and all actors, which include governments, individuals, and industry, need to address this issue urgently. ISO intends to highlight this by including the requirement of climate change in the management systems for organizations.